Welcome, everyone, to Coffee with a Codex, our last Coffee with a Codex of 2023. I cannot believe that we made it all the way through the year. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Dot Porter. I am a curator in the Schoenberg Institute for Manuscript Studies in the Kislak Center for Special Collections, Rare Books, and Manuscripts at the University of Pennsylvania. And once a week, I come online and I show you a manuscript from our collection. Today, I'm doing something a little bit different. We're going to be looking at, well, there's a leaf right here. And then we're going to look at what we call a couple of breviary collages, and I'm afraid it's exactly what it sounds like. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. This is sort of low key. These are not large materials. I'm hoping that we'll have a little bit of time at the end. If you guys have questions or things you want to talk about, we can do that. We can do that too. So this is sort of low key, end of the year kind of thing. Amy, I think, is not here. She had something else. She may come in at the end. If you're here frequently, you know that Amy Hutchins is our manuscripts cataloger, and she often joins me because she knows a lot about manuscripts, especially our manuscripts here at Penn. So I'm starting with this guy. This is, as you can see, a single leaf. I didn't share the link to the shelf mark. I'll send it out on the list afterwards. The shelf mark is MS Coll 591, folder 11. So all of I'll move the camera so you can see this. We have these boxes of fragments. MS Collection 591. And there are two boxes in 591. This is the first box. It starts, as you see here, with folder 1. And these are our fragments. And so this one is not quite so pretty. This is 12th century Psalter leaf. It says leaf. It's actually a bifolium, so it's 2 leaves. This has been used in a binding, so it's kind of chewed up. But all of our leaves we keep here. So this leaf here lives in this box. I pulled this one out because one of the things that I'm going to be talking about today, you can't avoid it when you're looking at the breviary collages, is we're going to be talking about biblioclasm, also known as book breaking. This is the practice of taking books apart and usually using the pieces, often selling them, or doing other things, making collages with them, right? So this is a practice that is frowned upon. You shouldn't do it today, even though it actually still happens today. But a lot of manuscript collections have a lot of leaves and other kinds of fragments that survive. This one is from a breviary or a book of hours. Yes, this is why I pulled it out, because this is a leaf from a breviary from a similar time to the one that made up the collages that we're going to be looking at. It's just it's a little bit pretty. And this is why it would have been cut out of the book. You can tell it was cut out quite carefully, right? Along the, let's see, can I tell? Yeah, this is the side that I think it would have been cut. I can't even tell. I think it was cut along this side here. Very carefully. It wasn't ripped because whoever was doing this was like, well, I'm gonna cut this out, and it's got a pretty illuminated initial on it, and I can sell it to someone who will maybe put it in a frame or just keep it because it's pretty. And so a lot of leaves survive like this. So if you're interested in buying a manuscript leaf, you need to be kind of careful who you buy them from. Make sure that it has been a single leaf for a long time and wasn't done very recently. So that's your biblioclasm lesson. So that's one leaf. But what is up with these breviary collages is taking a manuscript, and instead of cutting the leaves out and sort of leaving them as individual leaves, it's taking them out and making pretty art with them. So we think that this was done in the 1800s. Was done a while ago. The only provenance information that we have for these is that they were gifted to us by Lawrence Schoenberg. So this is LJS 713, so it's part of the Schoenberg collection. There's no indication in the record of where he got them or who he bought them from. Presumably he bought them from a seller. That seller would have received them like this. So they've been like this for a couple of hundred years. So you can see what's happened here is we've taken the sort of pretty miniatures and cut them out and then pasted them together to make this little tableau. Why this book? So it may have been, it was clear. So this is a 15th century manuscript that this was done to. It's very clearly like French 15th century. There are books of hours from the same period that have very similar decorations. By the 1800s, it could be that, by the 1800s, I don't think anybody would have actively been using a 15th century breviary as part of their prayer. It may be that somebody got a hold of it who was Protestant, and so they weren't even Catholic. So they were just kind of using it because it's pretty. It could be religious, because I don't know who did this or why. It's sort of hard to say. I should say too, if you have questions as we go along, please put them in the chat. This is very informal. Feel free to do that. And I keep hearing people come in, so I'm gonna put the links in one more time for those of you who are coming in. This includes the link to the record and also other links too. So take a look through those. If you have questions, don't hesitate to put them in the chat. So Breviary Collage, 15th century manuscript, done in the 1800s, we think. And let's take a little closer look at what might be happening here. So these are going to be biblical scenes and other kinds of religious scenes that you're going to find in a breviary. Breviary, let me define that for you and make sure that I get it right. Breviary is the prayer book, right? The liturgical book, the daily service for the divine hours. To be sort of contrasted with the Missal. The Missal is the other liturgical book that you'll often hear people talk about. The Missal is like the Eucharist. So this was everything else, the daily hours, and that kind of thing. So all of the Psalms, prayers, readings, hymns, all of these things, closely related to the Book of Hours. But a breviary would be, I think, used in a church for services, while a Book of Hours would be for personal use. But they look very similar. So if you've looked at Books of Hours, this will look very similar to that. So could be, let's see, it's a little hard to tell, right? Because they're out of context. Oh, Joyce is pointing out the second image at the top. I'm going to talk about that because that's one of my favorite ones. So here we have, this could be money lenders in the church. There's a biblical story where, Jesus goes and turns over the tables in the church of the money lenders in there. So that might be what's happening here. It's a little hard to tell because there's no Jesus. This one that Joyce mentioned in the middle, I've been looking at a lot of these recently because I've discovered that this scene is a thing. You see it all the time if you're looking for it. So what is this? It's the Last Judgment, or Judgment Day, the end of the world. We have Jesus, and he's actually sitting on a rainbow. It's hard to tell here. Let me zoom in a little bit more. But that arch that he's sitting on is a rainbow. He's got the world under his feet. That's what that is. And you can see, it's a little hard to tell because it's small, but he's got his wounds. He's got his wounds in his hands and his feet. His tunic is open, so you can see the wound in his side. You've got saints here. I think this is probably Mary in the blue. I'm not sure. Other saints. And then there's this these are people coming up out of the ground. They're sort of halfway out of the ground. So this is people rising, right? The dead are rising because it's the Last Judgment, and so everybody comes back to life in the Last Judgment. In some of these, when they're larger, there's also a hellmouth. You'll also have hellmouth. So you'll have people going into the hellmouth and people coming up out of the ground. And then there's the blue behind it. I think that's the city of God. So this is what's happening here. And the rainbow is dark and the world is dark. And that might be because it could have been silver that's tarnished. It's a little bit hard. It actually looks just brown. But sometimes you actually see the colors. And sometimes they're black because they have been painted in silver that has now tarnished. Um, but that's a really interesting. It's one of my favorite ones. I love that one. I think because it's new to me. I just started recently realized that was a thing. Um, I think that this is somebody who's going to get burned at the stake. Maybe I'm not sure what's going on there. And then we have, of course, a lot of images of Jesus, Jesus's life. So here he is. Um, he's going around, he's going to find his 12, and here are the fishermen, come be fishers of men. Here is, I think, Mary greeting Saint Anne. And then here is, the record says it's some man with a mitre praying to an angel. I wonder if that's not supposed to be King, I don't think it's King David, because King David would have a crown, but it's something like that. There we go. Oh, Claire says modern silver embroidery is stored with anti-tarnish paper or cloth. Yeah, it tarnishes really. It's just like your silverware. Like I remember my mom had like really nice silverware, and we would always have to polish it because it would turn black really easily. So here's more life of Jesus. Again, out of context, without the writing around it, whatever, probably a biblical reading. This would have been to illustrate a gospel reading. It's a little hard to tell what this might be, but it looks like he's being maybe accused at this point. Here he's preaching, and here, if anyone knows what this is, I'd love to know. It is somebody chopping down a tree. I assume this is some maybe Old Testament story that I just don't recognize. But there's that. And then around this, in addition to the borders, which have been taken out, you can see they've included the creatures, which are always fun. Here's a little creature over here. But in addition to the borders, there's also text that's been cut out. Again, whether and these have been identified in the record. I'm not going to go and look and see exactly what they are. I should say the text is how we know that this is from a breviary and not like a book of hours, I think, because it's got these readings in it. But all of these have little illuminated initials, like the leaf, the single leaf that I showed you earlier. These are being included because of the art. This is upside down, right? If you have this upright, you're not even reading this. You're looking at these. And it's a little bit hard to tell, but this is actually two pieces of parchment. Here's one piece with a capital I, and there's a line here and then there's the second one, and then there's another little one here. So this is purely for aesthetic. Here's another little one, and then to complete the set up at the top, here we have, and here again, this is an initial A that's been pasted on upside down. And then we have this other little section, and we've got one of these sort of things to fill in the end of the line. You see these quite a lot. And I'm going to lift the frame up so you can see that this has been, here we go. Sorry. There we go. So this has been pasted to cardboard, essentially. It's like a thin board, and you can see here the this is the edge of it, and I think this is even um, glue, whatever glue they use. They just sort of, put it all over this board and then pasted these pieces on directly onto it. So that is one, and I have a second one too. So I'll pull that one out. Are there any questions? Will I switch over? Any thoughts on this? They're pretty neat. I'm glad that we have them, and I hope that nobody, that we're not still making them. My colleague Nick Herman, who some of you have seen because he's hosted a couple of times, co-hosted. Nick Herman has a lamp in his office that has a shade that's made from a great big breviary leaf, which again is pretty cool. But it's this like constant tension between this cool thing that is kind of a shame that it exists. I'm going to go ahead and lift this all the way up. And again, it's really similar to the other one. It's clear it was made by the same person. Well, I can't prove it was made by the same person, but they're very similar in the layout and how they were done. And I've never actually, they must exist, but I've searched for them and I've never seen another one. So I'm not really sure. Let's see, Karen has a question. I wonder if the illuminations have faded and changed colors as a result of exposure to light and glue or backings. A closed book would have protected color and prevented the tarnishing. So the tarnishing of the silver, that happens even in closed books. I've seen it. So tarnishing of silver is going to happen either way. I do wonder about the colors though. The room that I'm in doesn't have great lighting, but it's the same room I'm always in. But I do think that the likelihood that these have been framed and hung on walls is very high. So they aren't as bright, I think, as they probably were. Especially the orange, I can imagine that the orange, which is all over the place, this sort of orangey red, was probably much brighter at some, when it was first made or when the manuscript was there. So here is Jesus praying to God. Often God is sort of shown as a little face coming out of a hole in the sky, which I think is I just love it. I think that's so fun. I'm used to seeing it with King David, but that's clearly Jesus there, and you've got the pretty city in the background. This manuscript must have been really quite something when it was first made. Um, yeah, Joyce points out that the blue is still pretty vivid, and it is. It might be lapis. We'd have to test it to know. I'm not sure. Um, so this is Jesus healing someone pretty clearly. Here is Jesus maybe preaching, or I don't think he's preaching because there's people behind him, so it's like he's I don't know what story that is. Out of context, it's hard to say. Here's Jesus coming back from the dead, I think, showing his. Well, no, he's got the saints around him, so maybe it's just a general illustration of him with the saints. Here he is. I think this is preaching to his followers and preaching to his followers. I just noticed he's pointing at his hand. In both of these, he's pointing to his hand, and I don't know what that means. It looks like, pardon me, but in this one, it looks like he's showing them where he lives in Michigan. I don't know if you guys have ever known someone who lived in Michigan, but they always point at their hands. I don't think that's actually what he's doing, but what makes me think of that. Or Wisconsin, yes, Rachel. I don't want to. We have two states in the United States that are shaped like hands. So here is some biblical story. I don't know. He's got a rip in it. Maybe he's a poor man. Are they going to help the poor man? It looks like that's probably the stories that Jesus would tell, his little stories. I can't think of the term. I'm sorry. And here he is again preaching, and preaching. So lots of Jesus. He did a lot of that. So we can forgive him for being pictured like that. Let's see. And then we'll zoom out a little bit. And again, parables. Thank you, Kelly. Sorry, my brain isn't that great all the time. So again, we have illuminated initials around the edges. And this one, it looks like it's just single pieces. The other one combined different pieces of parchment together, but this one has all of them. And this one also, sadly, doesn't have any little creatures in the margins. Although the foliations are it's really nice. Again, this would have been a really fine manuscript in its time. Here's some berries. Here's a blackberry. Really beautiful. Just very nice manuscript. So those are the breviary collages made in the 1800s by cutting apart a 15th century breviary. I'm going to close this up, and since I have this whole box of fragments, I thought we could look through a few more just to see a few more examples, because in some cases, like clearly this one and the leaf we looked at the start, these were leaves that were cut out purposefully. So the books were cut apart on purpose for aesthetic reasons. This one, let's see. Oh, this is I won't take that out, but you can kind of see this. It's a little bit. So this one is a little bit different because this has been used in a binding. So sorry, is there a question? Okay. So if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. Don't be shy. But this is probably from a book that was no longer used for some reason pretty early on, probably in the, likely in the 16th century, 17th century. And the parchment was reused by being put into a binding. And how we know it was in a binding in this case really is because of the damage around the edge. So this is from a worm. These are wormholes. Sorry, the shine is not great. You can see here these wormholes, and worms do not generally eat parchment. You very rarely see wormholes in parchment. It's really something that you see in paper, because they like to eat. The worms like to eat sort of paper material, and they also eat wood. And so I think that this was probably used as some kind of end leaf or like a paste down. So it was actually pasted onto wooden boards. And so when worms got into the book and were eating through the wooden boards, they also ate the parchment, since the parchment was stuck to it. So Anne is asking why I'm not wearing gloves. I never wear gloves. We have a policy not to wear gloves. I washed my hands and dried them before I came in. If you wear gloves, you can't feel what you're touching, and it's really easy to handle it too roughly. It doesn't help the material of books, paper or parchment, to wear gloves either. If your hands are clean, you're not going to make them more dirty. There are other reasons too. The only time I've ever worn gloves is when I was handling a manuscript that had been coated with white lead, and so the lead could have poisoned me, and that's why I wore gloves. So really the only reason that we wear gloves is when that happens. And hi Amy, welcome. As Amy points out, this particular manuscript is encapsulated in mylar. That's what this plastic material is. So I could even I'm not because I don't like to do that. But so I'm not even touching it right now. But when we were looking at the book, at the manuscript earlier, but yeah, we don't wear gloves. So that's one. And I think we have time maybe to look at one more. Yeah, the calligraphy. Let me open that up because Karen's pointing out the calligraphy. It is a nice manuscript. I feel like this is one that sort of ran its course. It it served its purpose and it got old, and then books started being printed. This is the thing, like the printing press really took off and people didn't need manuscripts anymore because they were using printed copies. And so the manuscripts that weren't being used got taken apart and often reused in bindings, and also cut apart and sold for pieces. This is just a scrap. And this one I can even pull this one out. So this is a scrap. This is another one that was used in a binding, and it even has the paper, whatever it was glued to, is sort of stuck to it now after it was pulled off. And there's the front part. This is very nice. This is quite early. I think this is 12th century. And you can see the manuscript would have been much larger. This is part of one column, most of a column, and this other column that's cut off. So it would have been quite a large, wide manuscript here. Oh, put that way. Maybe one more. Let's see if we can find we have a lot of ones that are binding. We call them binding waste. I think that's not, I don't really love that term. Oh, this is a fun one. This is another one that has, this is really, really nice. I'm going to zoom in. And you can imagine, again, like how this it would have been a lot bigger around the edge. All the edges were cut off. This is something glossed. What is it? Oh, a psalter. Yes. So the psalm text is the large letters and the large text, and then there's sort of commentary in the smaller text, and it's got this really wonderful decoration around this initial. It's just blue and red, and yet it is really gorgeous. There we go. Oh, Amy, why do the nations rage is set by Handel in the Messiah. I didn't know that's what it was. Is that what this is? Is that what you're saying? I love that you recognize that. All right, so we have 1 minute left. So I get to say what a pleasure this is every week to be able to talk about our collections with you. And I have a lot of fun, and I'm really glad you come. And I'm excited for next year. We're going to keep on as we have every Thursday at noon Eastern time. And I hope folks will keep coming because I enjoy it. And I have a wonderful break. We'll be back on the 11th of January, and I have the first two. They're on the website, and I'll be sending a reminder also on the mailing list. If you're not on the mailing list, join the mailing list. It's great. So I will see you guys next year. Bye.